Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Time and Place, the gospel conversation show where we discuss faith on the fringes and do our best to bring God's word to God's world. I'm Solomon and this is Julian.
Yo.
And today we're going to talk about anxiety. But first, Julian, what the heck is going on in the world today?
If you live in England, COVID is over officially. No more masks, no more passports, no more restrictions.
Cheerio.
We should have brought out the Union Jack.
I know. So what does over mean for England, and why can't we be over? Why can't it be over here?
Because the prime minister was getting hammered from all sides, so he decided to go for it.
Boris?
Yeah, he was the one who kind of spearheaded the whole Brexit thing. So he was like super right-wing, populist, will of the people kind of person. But when COVID happened, for some reason, he went full authoritarian. He just locked everyone down.
They're different over there, man.
Yeah.
They don't have the freedoms.
No, it's that they don't have the mentality even to think about freedoms.
What do they think about?
Duty.
Is that the whole royal thing?
Yeah, because it's
we don't have a king.
For king and country. We don't have king.
So we don't duty?
Yeah, we really don't, because it's...
Is that freedom?
Yeah, that's what it is. Like, the American dream is all about your personal...
Yeah. Was it you that told me about the difference between Doctor Who and Captain Kirk? About like how someone did a study, or someone did like some kind of analysis on the difference between Captain Kirk and Doctor Who, and just the show Star Trek and Doctor Who, and how different it was, how American Star Trek is and how British Doctor Who is, because them as like leading characters are so American and so British. So the Time Lord, right. is the Time Lord, and he's like been in that forever, or whatever the story is, right? And you can never be the Time Lord.
Yes.
You can be his friend.
Right.
You can travel companion, but you can never be him, or like, a time, whatever. And so that's like a British thing. Like, you're never going to be king. You can come with me, but there's titles here. There's roles here. Whereas Captain Kirk is like a pull yourself up, from nothing to the captain of the Enterprise, of like, all right, here we go. And then guess what? You can be captain someday. You can work your way up, and that's how it works. And it was just like funny how different it was of how those sci-fi shows kind of at the same time were.
Yeah, that is interesting, because the Doctor Who, by proxy of being on forever, it does always change character. Like, the guy is always a different actor, but it's never you.
It's never you.
You're never going to be him.
You're never going to be him, and you're never going to, And so like that's kind of the way it is. Whereas like, Starfleet or whatever, the Federation or whatever it is, they move up and they get different ranks, and then it's just like how it is in the military. Yeah. And so, but I guess it's
the Navy,
I guess it's just different over there, with very like, this is your class, and this is where you are, and this is just kind of where you're going to be. And if you want to be something else, go to America.
Yeah, and everybody did.
That's what everybody did. So like all the other countries too. So.
Well, that's what blows me away with places like Canada and Australia, and like I think of them as modern countries with concept of freedom and human rights, but they're really not. They're Commonwealth countries.
Right.
They have that royal mindset where if the government is spoken, the divine right of kings.
Now, do we have a certain level of chaos? And are we missing out on something because we don't have that? We're all one sort of.
I think it's worth the trade-off.
Yeah,
I think so. Because imagine if we all had New York or California's mentality.
Well, maybe it won't be that, but
But that's the if we're talking about like the elite class.
So does everyone in England have the London mentality?
Well, I don't know. It's different because it's not, one, England's not as big.
Yeah.
And two, being an elite is different than just being regional.
Man, that's a big part of it. Like all the European stuff is just like, they're basically states.
Right.
And our states are very different. And so, imagine if they were. And we would kind of have the same diversity we have here, but just different countries.
Right.
Instead of,
That's what's weird about America, that we have those, like, we're kind of separate countries.
Yeah.
But
so is that why COVID's still going on? Because we're so like, we're not unified, I guess, just kind of with that, where everybody was like, because I'd say Texas is like England right now, and Florida, we're open. They've been open. COVID's been over here for a year.
Yeah, Florida is full on.
Except the half price books.
Yeah, half price books. Still, we're coming after you, half price.
Being Nazis with the masks. So, what about private businesses over there? Are they not like? Because like here, that's the thing here is like we don't have a federal mandate. and so you can't do. You can't. Well, whoever is Biden is the boss of, he can't tell them what to do.
Right.
You can't tell people at a private business if they want to. Hey, we're all wearing blue shirts on Tuesday. That's what happens. If we're all wearing masks, that's the freedom of the private business. They don't have that over there.
I don't know how private business works over there because like they have government-run TV.
So we kind of like going, or we have public television.
Yeah, but nobody cares about public television. Like, public television has to ask you for your money. They have to pay a TV tax.
Is that how all their TV is over there?
Over there, if you live in England, you own a TV, you pay a TV tax every year.
But we don't have a TV tax.
Yeah, because we don't have government-funded television.
What's the public?
That's relying on us. That's why PBS would always say, brought to you by McCoy's Lumber and viewers like you, because they do a pledge drive or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Those You get a free tote bag.
Yeah. I never gave them money.
For $1,000 to Sesame Street.
But that's, it's, they just have a different mentality.
But that's not government.
No, it's not government.
So what is it then?
For us or for them?
For us. Like, what's PBS?
It's public broadcast. I mean, I'm sure they get a percentage from the government.
Is that all?
But it's not enough to keep it running.
Huh. That's weird. So, like, but I thought that's when Mr. Rogers, like, went to...
Yeah, and I think he got, like, some.
It was enough to save it,
well,
apparently.
And that was a mistake.
Man. So they tax us, and then they still annoy us with this.
They still ask us for money anyway.
Is there anything good on public television?
I've never... PBS? When's the last time you watched anything on PBS?
When I was a kid, when we watched Arthur.
Right? That was it. And now Arthur's got the agenda.
Is Arthur woke?
Oh, yeah. He's got a gay teacher.
Oh, man.
It was a surprise. The teacher, Mr. Ratburn.
He's gay?
He's gay. He was getting married, and they were building it up, and they were like, oh, it's his wedding. And then you find out it's to another dude.
Oh, man.
So
they got blue-pilled.
I remember I saw a TV movie on PBS that was pretty good. I don't remember what it was called, but it was about a magician, and I thought that was pretty cool.
I always thought the camera was weird on those, like, Masterpiece Theater.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, it's, like, super...
It's like a soap opera camera.
Yeah. And I didn't like it.
It's not quite TV, but not quite...
Yeah, some people have... there's TV set that way. And I go... Like, my uncle have that. And I went over there. I was like, oh, your TV looks all weird. It's all every television, every station. It's that weird fat, like, everything is caught. And I was like, why is your TV all weird? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, your TV looks weird. It's like the camera looks weird. And they're like, it looks fine. It's like normal. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Like, are we seeing different things? And that is really weird. Like, are we seeing the world at different frame rates?
Yeah.
Is that possible? If someone can't see the change?
No, I think it's if you're used to it. Like if you had it for so long, you don't notice that it's different than what before.
But those haven't been around. The super HD.
No, but I imagine if you watch it for long enough.
So my 40-something-year-old uncle, growing up watching all normal television,
think about
buys this and doesn't know it's not normal.
Have you ever tried to watch a music video from like when you were a teenager on YouTube?
Yeah.
And it's like hyper pixelated, and you can't really like it doesn't look like you remember it being clear.
Yeah.
But you're so used to the 4K, 5K YouTube now that it looks super weird.
What do they call that? Where it's like you remember things differently? You know what I'm talking about? It's like with like movie lines, especially.
Oh, the Mandela effect.
Yeah. You remember everything differently.
They'll have those on I'll see videos where people are reacting to it and they're like, I know for sure.
Yeah.
No, you never saw that. I had a friend who swore that Shazam was a real movie with Sinbad as a genie.
Shazam?
Yeah, Shazam.
Well, there's Kazam.
Exactly. And that's how I first heard about
Shaq.
it. Yes.
Your friend's just racist.
You saw a tall black man. It's the same thing.
Shazam, you know.
Apparently, that's how this whole Mandela effect got big, because people swear they remember Sinbad playing a genie named Shazam. And everybody else is like, that never happened. You're thinking of Shaq in Kazam.
Whoa, that's weird.
Yeah.
Is it the Shah and Kazam?
That's what I'm assuming.
Like they just, and then for some reason threw Sinbad in there.
And there's people who are trying to put it together and like this, like make a coherent string. Like this is why you think that happened.
Trying to analyze the glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. What happened? Because we're in a simulation.
Yeah, there was a movie. They should call Shazam. This is that, and some people remember. They haven't taken the blue pills every single day, and they remember.
Well,
called Shazam.
the theory, the pop culture, the bro science theory is that it's when when the multiverse, when two worlds
overlap,
and you get left in a world that you didn't come from. So things are different now.
So the only thing's different.
Yeah, it's that Shazam. It's like when in Into the Spider-Verse when it's like instead of Coca-Cola, it's something else. Like that's the only difference.
Yeah. Did you see that movie yesterday?
No, I never saw that one.
It was really good.
Was it?
Yeah. I mean, it was fun.
It's an interesting premise.
Yeah, it was cool, but the most really interesting thing was all the peripheral stuff that changed when the Beatles.
Oh, because
there was no world of the Beatles, and it says something like because he's like, "Oh, I want a Coca-Cola," and she's like, "Oh, what?" It's like, oh,
that's weird. If you think about pull one pin, and like everything changes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the whole multiverse thing. That's not real, right? Though.
No, I mean.
This is the only possible world?
Yeah. From a Christian worldview, yes. This is the only possible world.
Except the metaverse.
Right. Well, I mean, that's not going to happen. We've already established that's not happening.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, I saw those contacts. Remember? Those AR contacts? Because that was what we talked about last time.
You have to have something that's not stupid.
The hardware, is too clunky. Well, I was looking at some stuff. Someone sent me, so I was talking about it. Someone sent me something. They have AR contact lenses where you put it in your eyes and you look at the computer and you can see information about it off to the side.
I don't like
that. You see people and you see information, and it's like it's augmented goggles. And it's like, whoa, that's the first step in like a bunch of steps that gets us to contact lenses over your pupils that puts you in the multiverse and you can just see everything VR, virtual reality, not augmented reality, virtual reality. And so you have nothing on your head. Forget glasses. Forget eyeglasses.
It's just your eyes.
Lightweight. It's just contact lenses. Right. And now you're in a different world. That's super weird, right? And then someone showed me the Black Mirror episode with that.
Oh, yeah, where they record everything. Yeah. Oh, no, that's a different one that I'm thinking of.
Well, this was one where you can like go into like a world or like a gaming thing. And it is, you put these little contact things, or you put something on your temple and then your eyes kind of glaze over.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, whatever. And he's in the video game.
Because you would have to be able to fight to like feel, right?
Well, that guy's just in Black Mirror, they're just sitting there, but yeah.
But I mean, like, if it's gonna be cool, if you're gonna go like the holodeck, you want to be able to like, feel like you're really there.
Yeah, that is like that. Shut me up. That might happen if the hardware can.
So now the metaverse.
If the hardware can keep up with the software or whatever, the online stuff, then who knows? Then it will be. But anyway,
I don't know. We'll see.
So COVID's over in England.
It's
been over in Texas and Florida for a long time.
Well, it depends who you talk. The reactions are what blow my mind, because I would think that everybody would be like me, and when they tell you can leave your house, you can go to stores, you can hang out again, it's like, thank you, we're back. Yeah. But no, people are freaking out, like we're all gonna die, hospitalizations, what are we gonna do? This is irresponsible.
I think from very early on, I knew it was gonna be we are gonna have to change this. I figured they're never going to come out and be like, it's over, folks. Go about your business. It's all done. It's always going to be, control and fear. And we're going to be the ones that have to resist against that and just go to the store without a mask on.
That's essentially what Boris Johnson said, was that it's not that the pandemic's over. It's that we just have to learn to live with it the same way we do with the flu and everything else.
Right. And at this point, but is there anyone who didn't know that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people bought into the narrative that we can beat this.
Why?
I don't know.
It was so strange.
I don't know.
When have we ever? I mean, I guess because of like polio, probably, or smallpox.
Yeah.
But I mean, how long was that? Did that go before we quote unquote beat it?
Yeah, millennia.
And then we found a true vaccine.
Right.
And who knows? Maybe we will find something that actually is like, you know what? There's actually no corona out there anymore. Because we got real vaccines. Real medications.
Well, I mean, if a virus is doing what it's supposed to do, it just weakens itself, right? Like it'll burn itself out.
Why didn't like smallpox and polio do that stuff?
I mean, haven't they? Do they?
I don't know.
Do we?
You got chickenpox? Is that like a? Is chickenpox the Omicron of like smallpox?
Smallpox. You just got small. That's already small.
Yeah, you're just itchy.
Yeah, that's all you got left.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. Apparently, chickenpox is still, if you're like an adult and you get chickenpox, you can sterilize you.
That's why they want kids to have.
Yeah,
they have those chickenpox parties and stuff.
Get everybody infected so you get out of the way.
They used to do that with measles. Did you see that?
No.
Or I think it was measles. There's some old advertisements.
Tuberculosis.
There's some old like news articles or something. It was like measles party. All these kids are like, yeah.
I always like when you see old pictures of kids with like mumps And they've got like a rag tied around their head, holding their face together.
Oh my god, what a world! That's why everybody's like, oh, what if you could live in any decade? What would you right now?
Yeah,
I would choose to live right now because taking any look at the past is like no.
I imagine you go to the 30s and you immediately cut your knee on some rusty metal, and that's it.
Step out of the time machine.
Yeah, right away.
Ah! Remembering any tetanus stuff. It's like, oh no.
You're in leg braces and then you got rickets and
yeah.
Ugh.
That was it was John Mulaney's talking about like if he went to the past he couldn't prove he was from the future. Or he wouldn't do well in the past.
No,
he's like because they immediately want proof. Like, okay, well, who's the next president? It's like, oh.
That's where you're like, oh, yeah, I got no signal.
Like, yeah, some kind of proof for history, and he would just be screwed.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Like, well, that's it. Just here now. Yeah, that's funny.
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, the anxiety is still high. We live in the anxiety age.
Yeah,
this is the age of anxiety.
That's what's keeping America from not
from ending it,
being as good as England.
Anxiety. Well, England's where that slogan came from. Keep calm and carry on. Right when they were dropping bombs on them.
The Blitz.
Yeah, they were getting blown up. That's when you watch or read Narnia. That's the whole thing. They went to the country because the whole town was getting blown up.
Yeah, that's gnarly, dude. You see those planes flying over?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? God,
we've never had that here.
We never will. Pearl Harbor is the closest.
Yeah, but that was way out there and just on a naval fleet.
Yeah, you could never get that close. We got Navy.
That's true. Yeah, well, I mean the oceans between us on both sides are so big.
That's the thing with all those tiny little state-sized countries over there.
Yeah,
you take one tiny little plane ride, and you're in another country. Man, it doesn't happen here. Mexico or Canada. So no, but yeah, I think anxiety is so when someone says anxiety, what comes to my mind is like, well, I'm just kind of worried about something right now, but now there's this whole like diagnosis behind it, I guess, too now of like when someone says like they suffer from anxiety, they're not talking about what I think they mean.
Not like I'm nervous for my meeting tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say like I'm anxious right now.
Right, exactly.
It's like I can point to something.
Well, the way you phrase it is different too. Like I'm anxious as opposed to I have anxiety.
I have anxiety. I never say I have anxiety seriously.
I'm feeling anxious. There's a difference. This isn't something that I carry all the time. Yeah,
that's what Lauren would say. That she's like, oh, this part of town gives me anxiety. I'm like. Like when you drive, somewhere and it's just confusing. It's like they have anxiety. It's like I don't think you're supposed to say that.
You're supposed to say I feel anxious.
That's hate speech.
It's a little racist.
Yeah, just say you have.
Unless it's like the nice part of town, and you just
say you have anxiety. No, it's racist against people who have anxiety.
It's appropriation of their mental illness.
Yeah, it's like calling someone the R word. I almost said it.
The M word.
I almost said it. You're supposed to say it. Is that what it's gonna be? It's the A word. You can't say it. You can't say anxiety.
No, because you know why? Because it's a badge of honor. Like you're special. People have to cater to you if you have anxiety.
How so?
Because you get to use it to get out of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have social anxiety. I don't go to these fun. Like, if you want to cancel plans or you don't want to go to something you're invited to, just I have anxiety. I can't. If you're always late, I'm sorry. I'm driving on the highway is so bad. I have anxiety.
I hate all those things. I don't use that.
Yeah, but that's because you're an adult. You have to go places and do things.
I don't want to. If I didn't know, I didn't know there was this like free.
Oh, well, it's too late now. No, if you said it, nobody would believe you.
If I had anxiety, you wouldn't believe I have anxiety?
No, I for sure would have. Because you know what? Because you would say it matter of fact, like I have anxiety. And I was like, you don't.
Get off my back.
Exactly. Too defensive.
You're hostile about it. I have anxiety. I got a flare up.
In my experience, most people who say they have anxiety are female.
Uh-oh.
And we're gonna get non-PC for a while.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is, but it seems to be true. Like how many men do you know that don't drive?
None.
Right? How many women do you know that don't drive?
One.
Right? At least one.
But not because of anxiety in that person's case.
But how many times so like
I don't think
there's tons who I can think of who would never learn how to drive because I just can't get on the highway.
Really?
Yeah.
Who? Really?
My wife, for one. I've tried to put her behind the wheel a couple times. Like it's a small
could.
street. I don't think she could.
Oh, she could.
She gets that.
Lauren doesn't like it either. I mean, like, I don't like it. Nobody likes it. Like, it just sucks. But
there's a difference between I don't like it and I can't do it.
But there's crippling anxiety. Like, there's like panic attack kind of.
That's something I can't understand either. I've never had a panic attack. I don't.
That should be the proof. Like, if they take off a week off work because I have anxiety, I didn't want to see you have a panic attack.
I need to see you break down.
I want to see you sweat.
Come into the office so I can see you break down, and then you can go home.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you have a panic attack,
it's perfect because you can't prove it. Who's gonna? That's the thing, right? It's like, okay, if I have a broken leg, I can't come into work because I can't drive.
Right. I can't walk.
I can prove that. Like here it is. I can point to the bones sticking out. But with anxiety, and I think it's kind of in with like depression as well, or like kind of, I don't know, like some of those other ones.
Well, those are all. I thought those are all emotions, right? That now are conditions.
But aren't emotions as real as, a bone?
Yeah, but they're not as valid.
As a bone?
Yeah. Like if you break your leg, I'm not going to be like, walk it off.
You break your feelings. You hurt my feelings.
Yeah, then it's like, get over it.
Hurt your leg. But yeah, it's weird, man. Yeah, because it's all connected to the brain, though. And like that stuff can be what, wired.
Right. But there's a difference too. Like, people who have mental illnesses don't know they're mentally ill, right? Like if you have schizophrenia, you don't know you're schizophrenic. You don't take advantage of it. You don't talk about it on social media.
Dude, there's this lady at Barnes and Noble.
Uh-huh.
So I was there like just working or something, or like writing on, or reading at the cafe at the table. And this lady sits down. She's like, probably 60, 70 something. And she's talking to somebody. I thought she had a Bluetooth on.
Okay.
It's as if she had a Bluetooth
right.
on. And she's like, she's just sitting there, and she's got like kind of sunglasses on, and I think like her caretakers or somebody maybe gave her that, so she's not looking off. You know what I mean? So you can't tell if she's looking at somebody, and she's loud and she's talking to herself, but having conversations. But she listens for a while.
Ooh.
It's like she's listening for a while, and she'll like just respond. She's like, "Yeah, well, I told him, but," and then she said, I told him, but and he's a Polak. She kept saying Polak. Yeah, the Polak out loud, like screaming it, and people are like looking, like, is she talking to you? Is she talking to somebody? And she's just sitting there, and she's like, and she'll have like a magazine too, and she's like, and just kind of like
as if someone's sitting there with her.
But it's not. She's not looking at anything. She's just kind of like, you can't tell him anything. And she's just kind of like looking at a magazine. Ooh. And it's like, but loud, and people are kind of like staring at stuff, and man, and she kept saying that Polak. She kept screaming, well, yeah, the Polak.
Well, Polish people are white, right? You can be racist to them,
right? That one's still pretty safe. You take that.
How many Polish people are in San Antonio?
Yeah, well, I know a couple. Yeah, I know some Zakrasics and Lazinskis. Yeah,
Lazinskis. That's a European name if I ever heard one.
There's I forgot how shit.
Like smell like beets and borscht.
No one listens to this podcast anyway, so I can say it. Yeah, our worship leader lady, the girl who does music, her name is Micaiah Sawyer. Her last name was Sawyer.
Okay,
that's a cool American literary name.
Right.
And she married Lazinski.
Oof.
Now her name is Lazinski. I was like, oh man, that sounds
like a sleazy lawyer.
Lazinski.
Like you'd see an ad for it on a billboard.
They're both great. She's great. He's awesome.
Sure.
It's just the name of like, man, Sawyer. That's a cool last name. Going from Sawyer to Lazinski. That's a tough break.
That's like one of my friends. Their last name was Pooler, and they were Filipino on their mom's side. So they were half Asian. They looked super Asian, but they had really American names, right? Mm-hmm. The girl married a Chinese guy, so her last name was Chong, and she was like, I tried so hard to not come off this Asian Chong, and it's hilarious because her name is Chelsea, so she's Chelsea Chong.
Man, that's the Seinfeld episode.
It's like
Don Chang or whatever.
It sounds racist, but it's just your name, right? Like Charlie Chan, one of those 20s detective things.
Chong, yeah, man, that's. I was going to high school. Her name was Brittany Holder. Her dad's name was Richard.
Oof.
Yeah, Richard Holder.
Have you seen that Rogan where Steven Crowder is talking about the town hall they went to, and the guy's name was Rex Butts.
His real name?
Rex Butts, Dr. Rex Butts.
Oh my gosh. Rex Butts. Oh yeah. That'll give you anxiety.
If you had to introduce
If
yourself.
Rex Butts doesn't have anxiety and you do,
Well, imagine you go to his office and they're like, yeah, Dr. Butts will see you now.
Dr. Butts,
Like, ooh.
hold on to your butt.
You gotta be a proctologist.
It'd be worse
right?
if he's like, well, you can call me Rex. Like, what?
Dr. Rex.
Oh, no.
Definitely not doing that.
Oh man. So anxiety. Are we just talking about weak people here? Or are we talking about like
I don't
soy boys? Can't hack it?
I don't know if it's weak. It's almost like it's almost like we're so everything is so good that we can't handle the slightest inconvenience anymore. I don't think it's weakness. I think
Soft?
it's just softness, but by circumstance, not by character.
So it's not their fault.
In a way, I mean, it's like when it's like if you were like an upper crusty rich kid and you had to build a desk. Like, you can't buy it, you got to build it.
Yeah.
And we give you all the tools and everything you need. You don't know how to use any of that stuff.
Right. But now you're talking about me.
Well, hypothetically,
You call me soft?
I imagine you could build a desk if you had to.
If I had to.
You-
It
I
wouldn't
mean,
be great. But
You understand how a drill works,
Yeah, I
you
could
can
put it, I could
measure-
probably put it together. It wouldn't be great, but
right?
I could probably get it done.
But this is like you hand somebody the tools, they just don't know how to use them.
Yeah.
That's
Well, so and the reason I think the only reason it creeps in my mind that this is kind of fake or that this is an artificial sort of circumstantial disease out there is that when we look in the past, we don't seem to see so many people with anxiety
right
and these sort of emotional
in
problems.
a time when you would think you would.
Right.
Like,
The
this is the
depression.
most comfortable time we've ever had in history,
Right.
and everybody's anxious or depressed or something.
Right. But is it so it's a priorities thing or like, but does that make it fake though? Is that what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. So like, it's not fake, but does that make it circumstantial or kind of in your head or avoidable or whatever the bad words we want to use, like that you get in trouble for saying or accusing or whatever.
Avoidable, I think, for sure.
So in the problem is like, I don't know if I've ever met anybody or known anybody really like, and I don't know a lot of people like suffer from anxiety
Right.
really. But the ones I have, I can see sort of a worldview there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I see other people who don't have that worldview, who I would say maybe do struggle with some anxiety and some tension like that, but handle it way differently. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so in a much better way, much mature, like capable way than these other people with a different worldview. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like, okay, I'm seeing maybe a correlation here, but I don't know if that's always like, like it's just a different sort of the person's personality, person's worldview, the person's just other things they say. I definitely see like, okay, well, that's the person who says they have anxiety. And then this other person with like a different sort of characteristics doesn't have anxiety, or maybe he's dealing with it differently or something. But
Right.
I don't know. So that's the only thing that makes me think, because I tend to see other sort of narcissistic kind of
Right.
like, entitled kind of attitudes that tend to go along with anxiety. I'm not saying everything. Again, it's
Right,
personal.
right.
What people I've known,
Right.
that skewed it in my head
Mhm.
of this view of real anxiety.
And I think maybe it absolves you of fault if things don't work out.
Right.
It kind of goes with that victim mentality too, right? Like anxiety mentality, victim mentality, depression mentality. There's a lot of reasons why you can't do whatever, or why you can't deal with whatever, or why such and such situation didn't work out, why your relationships don't work, why you can't keep a job, why all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's easy to pin it on any of those things and say, well, this is why. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm not the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what. Yeah. That's the victim and sort of like entitled of like, well, why are all the bad things happening to me?
Right.
And it's like, well, why? Who are you?
That's a good question. I don't know. Why are all the bad things happening to you?
Well, why shouldn't they?
Right.
I mean, it kind of is the thing of just like bad things happen to me too. There's always there's always a worse situation out there.
But because in that person's head, it's like, well, of course they happen to you, but I'm great. Why would they happen to me?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, so that's kind of when I think of anxiety, that's what I think of is kind of like, I could probably name 3 other characteristics that person also has and be correct. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it tends to go along with a certain worldview and a certain what's the word I'm looking for? Not characteristics, but like demeanor or a certain kind of
temperament.
Yes. Yeah. It tends to go along with that. So that's what I think when I hear about anxiety in the real sense. You know,
I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't say they have anxiety too, but you can see like the constant worriers.
Yeah,
like it's different. Maybe they don't take advantage of it, but there is a sense of like always needing to be on top of something. Whether it's like they're a hypochondriac and they always think they're sick, or they're always going to get, especially now.
Yeah,
they're always going to get sick, or what if we don't have the money for it? Or there's a sense of like an awareness that the future is out of their hands, but an inability to cope with that.
Right. So before like in COVID, like with COVID and everything was going on and the height of it, of the craziness and fear and like, we don't have a vaccine, we don't know what to do, we don't know how bad this is going to get, you know. It was kind of the end of that. It was so in February 2021, I got COVID and was put in the hospital. And I was very, and still am, and again, very like, you know, live your life.
Right.
That we can't just stop the world in its tracks because of this. And like, we have to figure something out. We can be smarter about this. It's not just live in fear all the time. Masks kind of don't work, as they're actually admitting now. And but then I get COVID in the hospital. So then it's like, okay, well, I'm the idiot. Look at the egg on my face, you know? And so there was a definite possibility of me changing my worldview and outlook on that based on my own personal circumstances. Right. But I didn't. And people probably think I'm very stupid for that.
Right.
But the truth doesn't change based on my own personal situation. And I think the world doesn't understand that. If we shape our own truth by your lived experience or whatever, then your truth changes.
Constantly.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's literally how people think truth works, and facts and reason and understanding in like real situation, like reality works. It changes when you change, and it doesn't. The statistic still stands.
Right.
Someone in the 30s, you know, in not a smoker, not, you know, whatever, should be okay.
Right.
And all my other friends got this and breezed through it. And Lauren got it. You know, you got it.
Right.
And I was put in the hospital. So it's like, okay, well, this is a roll of the dice sort of situation.
Right.
How it hits people, and that's the truth. But the statistic is overwhelmingly that I should have been okay, and so I can't change that because I wasn't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so it's like that's the sort of thing. So it's like, well, someone, you know, I got struck by lightning, or I was in a car accident, so I'm never going to get in a car again.
Right.
That's what I mean. Of like, you know, I'm driving, whatever the odds are, what are the statistics? I got into a bad car accident, and now I'm never going to drive again. Is that rational?
No, absolutely not.
And so that's my situation with my COVID experience. And so it's like, but people think that you should wear 5 masks and get the vaccine and live in fear because you were put in hot. You know what I mean? And so it's like people won't understand how I don't change reality based on my own specific circumstances. And so, but I'm not. I can't. And so, but people do. And I think has a huge thing of anxiety because bad things do happen to you. And you think, well, that's how things will always be. You know, if I am in that car accident, you know, or if my aunt died in a plane crash, then I can't, you know what I mean? Like we have these personal experiences that affect us. And then that's reality now. So reality and truth are shaped by my lived experience. And if you've had a bad lived experience, hey, you might have some reason for anxiety.
I mean, that is modern thinking too, right? Like everything is, we need to listen to these voices because they know better, their perspective. You can't know something that you haven't experienced. Is the way that we think of things now.
Right.
So if you haven't been poor, you don't understand how to solve poverty. If you haven't,
right.
If
you're not black,
right? You don't.
I'll say it.
You can't solve race relations.
You can literally never understand the problems that a black person goes through.
Right.
And you're guilty of that forever.
Well, you literally are racist by proxy of existing.
Yes.
There's no way, and you can never be a victim of racism.
Right.
This is not possible.
Because we've changed what racism means.
Yes. Well, we've changed what everything means.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think in that sort of situation where someone's lived experience shapes reality around them and they've had some bad lived experiences, then yes, you think reality is out to, the world is crumbling around you. And when that's actually not true. And so is that where this comes from? I mean, I think that's maybe where a lot of this comes from, because it's the people that don't have that view of truth in reality that I see not dealing with anxiety as much.
Well, I think if you ask most people to define their worldview, they couldn't.
Yeah.
So that's it. It's not so much that like they have this perspective and these people have this perspective. It's these people have this perspective and these people have no perspective. And when something hits them and they're caught completely off guard.
So if I asked you to define your worldview, what would you say?
It would be a biblical worldview.
Right. And so because we have an anchor, we have something solid. But to those type of people whose lived experiences shapes reality around them, their worldview is constantly changing.
Right. They're just grasping for whatever.
And so they can't define it because it's constantly moving and changing. Well, today it's, I'm having a good day. So.
Right.
That's my worldview. Things are okay. Yeah. And it's funny talking about anxiety today because I applied for a position. It's kind of the same job, but like just a more solid, more concrete position with my company. And it's been 2 weeks as of today, and I haven't heard anything. Now, somebody else I knew said that it took 2 weeks for them to call her back, and she got the job. So I'm not like, okay, well, that seems normal, I guess. But they didn't call me today, and it's like, but they didn't email me either way. So they said we will let you know either way if you got the job or you didn't get the job. And it's been 14 days, and I've not heard anything, good or bad.
Right.
And so I'm choosing to kind of see good news is no news is good news kind of thing. So I don't know, but I am very like right now. I would say I'm anxious or I have anxiety a little bit of like, when is my phone gonna ring? I thought it might be today, Friday, perfect 2 weeks from the Friday interview. No phone call today, and so it's like. But no email rejection letter either. Right. So it's like,
so you don't know.
I don't know, and that's the worst part. It's that uncertainty of not knowing, and that is causing me this temporary state of anxiety. So maybe some people who have a life of unknown, of uncertainty,
where everything is uncertain.
Yeah, nothing is certain at all. Except for death and taxes.
Right.
And so that can cause you anxiety your whole life.
It's funny. We were going through Ecclesiastes at church, and I got to the part where in chapter 2, the author talks about how he decided to plunge himself into wisdom, and he learned that wisdom is better than being foolish, in the same way that light is better than darkness when you're trying to find your way around. So he was like, wisdom is a better guide. But in being wise, he realized that he was going to die just like everybody else. And it didn't make a whole lot of difference how he lived his life, right? So it's kind of this black grace is a way I've heard it said before. Or
black?
Black grace. Because you see the... black is in the opposite of like... I'm stuck. I'm in a corner. Someone get me out of here. But it's the idea that you see the goodness of God by seeing what it looks like in the absence of God.
Oh, okay.
So
the void
of God, then yes, we all die, we all go to dust, and none of it makes any difference.
Okay.
So I think in COVID land, this was the first time anybody had to face their mortality, and that truth hit them that, well, we're all going to die, and their brain fried, like they didn't know how to deal with that fact because they've never thought about it before.
That's weird. You think they think about it all the time?
No, I don't think anybody's ever put any thought in that. I don't think people think they're gonna die ever. Like I don't wake up thinking today I could die.
I don't think
I
that
know at
either.
some point, but I think some
Yeah.
people just don't even have that in their mind ever.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to one friend about how we're so far removed from death at this point where it's clinical and it's over there. And as soon as I remember my grandfather died, he died at home, but as soon as he died, they made 2 phone calls and the funeral home was there in 5 minutes to take the body, clean him up. Like you didn't have to see, touch, do anything. And the next time you see him, he's clean and pristine in the casket and everything's like pure, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like 100 years ago, you almost guaranteed to have someone in your immediate family dead.
And probably in the house with you.
Like a brother or someone, you know, like, cause like you had 10 kids and like half of them didn't make, you know, death was definitely a lot more like just around you more. And we don't have that really anymore. I mean, and I would say it's a good thing, but you know, it made us softer to it or something.
Yeah, because we don't see it. We don't think about it. And we don't want to, which I understand.
What about TV? People get killed on television all the time.
But that doesn't feel real.
CSI.
Yeah, but you never think it's gonna happen to you.
Right.
It's fantasy. Like that's not real.
Yeah. I mean, I know. I remember when, like, cause you know, you watch Pulp Fiction or like any sort of all these rated R, violent, crazy movies and stuff, and it's like they're desensitized. Video games and you know, we're desensitized. And I saw my dad get his thumb stitched up, and I almost passed out. It's like, I don't think I'm desensitized. It's a lot different when it's real.
Yeah, when it's real.
So we see this stylized violence on TV and movies, and it's almost like cartoonish. It's like, well, that's not what, you know, it really looks like, or any sort of gore or anything like it looks like. So yeah, it's definitely different. You're seeing it in real life or something. Not that I had much experience, but yeah.
Well, I think just along with the death, it just everything. Like people lost their jobs they weren't counting on.
Yeah.
The economy crashed. People lost their money they weren't counting on. Like
money's a big one.
Yeah.
Money's a huge one.
Money's probably the biggest anxiety.
Yeah, I'd say more than death.
I think that's the number one cause of most marriage problems, finances.
I've never been dead. I've been broke.
I know what that feels like.
That sucks. I've never died. I don't know what that's like. But I've been without.
It's almost better. You go to heaven if you die.
Been without money. That really sucks. Yeah, that's a big one, dude. Like just money. Is that idolatry though? I
don't know if I call it idolatry.
Is it sin to have anxiety?
That's a good question, and that's something I struggle with because, you know, the biblical command is be anxious for nothing. Yeah. It just says it. Like, it doesn't make qualifications. It doesn't make like, well, you know, sometimes it's okay, but try not to. It just says be anxious for nothing. Yeah.
Because we have the same with emotions and things. Right. Or even like coveting. That's a very natural.
Right.
And so it's to say like, well, anxiety is a natural occurrence. Well, so is lust and coveting and a lot of things that are. I've never understood where we got this idea that because something's natural, that makes it okay.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying is like your feelings are real, but that doesn't make them valid.
Right.
So you can really be anxious, but that doesn't mean it's okay.
Right. And so it's a sin.
I would lean on yes. If I'm being honest, that's where I land.
So is it a sin to have cancer?
No.
It's the same thing. How dare you?
Yeah, I'm ableist. Anti-mental anxiety.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I can't.
You have diabetes. How dare you?
And you know what? It's my own fault. No.
You're sinning.
I have the other kind, not the one you get from getting fat.
Not the one you earn.
Yeah, not the one you earn. I didn't even earn mine. That's privilege.
Just the earned one.
Fat Americans. Yeah, but I mean, I can't rationalize another way looking at the Bible when it just don't worry. Don't cast all your cares on him because he cares for you. Tomorrow has its own worries, or today has suffice. What is the word Jesus says?
Therefore, I tell you, Matthew 6:25. Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? I don't think a lot of people think so.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
A lot of people don't see life as beyond the material things, and so if they don't have that, then your life is over.
Right, then it's nothing.
Look at the birds of the air; they neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? And
Mm.
why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore, do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the Gentiles seek after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. So how do we turn that, which is beautiful, how do we turn that into not just some Christian thing we say?
Well,
how can I add that to, because I do worry about feeding my kids,
right,
and getting this job.
right.
I mean, if I get this job, that's going to be a big change. It's going to be a step up, and it's going to be a big game changer. And so I'm worried about if I don't get it. I mean, I think I will eventually, just because the track I'm on right now.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, if at all, it's like, okay, I don't get this, or if I lose my job, then it's like, okay, then what? And so we're supposed to work, supposed to provide for our family,
right.
And so I can't do that. That's gonna, especially as a man, cause anxiety, And so, how do we apply this in that very natural thinking, fears of losing a job, or worrying about what I'm going to wear, or we're going to clothe my kids and feed my kids and family and all those things?
Well, the perspective, I think, is what Jesus points out is he's not saying not to worry just to not worry, right? Not to worry because your heavenly Father knows all these things and provides them for you. And I think when we take that step of, if I don't do this, if I don't do, because there is that, whoever does not provide for his family is worse than an unbeliever, right? Like that. So you have to work. You have to provide for your family. That's righteous and good. But there's a sense where it becomes a self-idolatry of, I am keeping this going. Everyone is dependent on me. I'm the force that makes this go. And the perspective that Jesus is putting out is like, no, your heavenly Father is the one who's keeping you going, who makes this go. And I think if we lose that perspective, we want to switch ourselves for God. And that's where the anxiety comes from. Because God can handle everything.
Right.
But you can't. So when you put yourself in that role, naturally you're going to have that anxiety and fear of like, I can't handle this. Like, yeah, of course you can't.
Right.
You weren't meant to.
So if I read my Bible every day and I pray and I go to church, I don't cuss, and I pay my bills, and I am a good person, will I always have a roof over my head and food and things provided for me?
No, but you will always be exactly where God wants you to be. And that's a different thing. That's something that I think a lot of Christians are not okay with.
Yeah. Well, it's hard when he puts it in terms of material provision.
Yes.
And so that, how are we not to take that as like, well, if I seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, all these things will be added to me. And I can live my best life now. How does that not slip into that kind of prosperity gospel of like, if you're doing right, then you're going to get blessed.
Oh, it's the reading in a vacuum.
With material things.
Right. Well, it's reading in a vacuum as opposed to like later where he'll say in John, if the world hates you, it's because it hated me first. Or, we have to take this as a whole and not just this piece and say, this is the part I hold on to.
Yeah. And I think it's those, it's the clothing and the food and everything that show that God is God. And if it's not that, then it's not, you don't need it. I guess is the thing. So if your clothing and your food and your material provisions don't point to God's glory, then that's why you don't have them, or that's why, you know what I mean? Or if you idolize them, they'll take away that idol.
Yes.
Even if it's clothing and food and a job. And so it's like,
what? A lot of us don't think of things in that category though.
Yeah.
We don't think of jobs or clothes or food as idols.
Right. Which, I mean, they are.
Right.
They can be. Yeah. Anything can be. Any created thing. We're either going to worship the creator or the created thing.
Right.
Clothing, food, and material provisions are created things. And so, yeah, if we idolize those things and that's been my prayer, like with this job, is having to keep myself in check of like, God, please let me get this job. But if not, let my hope and faith be in you, and not in a job. And you provide, you always have before this job. You will after this job. You will if I don't have it, And so it's like I don't want to put my hope and faith in this job or in money or in anything like that, even though that's what pays for the material things.
Right.
So, but it's not. I don't want to put my hope and faith in that thing because then that is idolatry. But I do want that thing, and so it's this weird line we have to walk of like, it's okay to have a job and good to have a job. It's okay to feed your kids and have food and clothes and a house, but you can't be living for those things and have put your hope and faith in those things.
Yes,
because then that's when God's gonna take it away.
Right.
And so you can't, you're gonna melt your idols.
As soon as you can't live without it, that's when you're not gonna have it.
Right. And so, but it's just so hard, especially when you've always lived with it.
Mm-hmm.
You've always had, especially in America, a lot of us just have these kind of material comfort, very privileged lives compared to the rest of the world, that it just becomes a right. Like, well, I deserve this. Well, of course I did. I have a job. Of course, I work. I pay my bills. Why is this happening to me? Of course I'm going to do it, And so, but of course, then that makes you the God.
Right, exactly.
Like, well, I did everything,
For my glory.
Yeah, exactly. And so,
what do you think about, when we talk about not having or not providing of the role of like the church to make sure that doesn't happen to somebody?
I mean, I think it should. I'm sure it should.
Right.
What do you mean?
Like, do you think there's a sense in which we should or can have a mentality of like, well, if I fall on hard times, if for whatever, let's not say, I quit my job and I just don't want to work or anything like that. Something goes wrong, something catastrophic we didn't see happening. Our car just dies. We get laid off, something like that. Having the security of being able to say like, well, our church will be there.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've definitely experienced that, like just anytime with like sickness or just situations, or even like when we have a baby or something, they'll make us food that automatically start a meal train, when something happens, tragedy or anything like that happens. There's definitely that. And I mean, it depends on the need, and it depends on, like, I guess what it is. And we should be smart and wise about those things.
Right.
So it's not just like, because there's definitely a tendency to be just to buy people's devotion, sort of. I guess, and that's it, like what the government does.
Right.
With just
well, that's something I've noticed with anxiety too, especially when people start to get older, and it becomes that idea of like, there's no social safety net. There's nobody to count on. No one's going to help me. I don't have anyone to turn to if something should go wrong.
Well, whose job is that?
Well, in my head, right, if your parents are old and falling apart, that's with your kids to come in and take care of you.
Right.
But nobody has kids.
Right. I think about that with like some people I know. It's like, well, I'm never having kids.
Right.
And it's like, who's going to take care of you? And that's, I don't think they think about it. I think they really think like, well, just the state.
Yeah, I'll get a check.
Yeah, but everyone right now being on the state, is miserable. Like, it's a horrible. You put some like public home or something, so you die. Like, that's the plan when you're super old.
Yeah, because I don't think they have the perspective to think about being super old.
Yeah,
because I think that's another thing too.
I think about that a lot. I think about being old all the time.
Well, you grew up around grandparents, right?
Yeah, my grandparents are super young.
So
they're like another set of parents.
Yeah,
almost.
I've seen mine deteriorate as time goes on.
My parents had me when they were 19.
Yeah, see, my mom was 18 when I was born. So my grandparents were in their 40s.
Yeah,
I've seen them deteriorate over time.
Yeah.
And like, I see that and I think, man, that's going to be me one day.
Yeah.
And I think maybe a lot of people don't see that either. Like, how many people spend time with their grandparents or their older relatives?
Yeah, that's true. They're usually super old. But I think of it like, I see my grandparents and I see that they're not being taken care of by their kids necessarily. Some are, a little bit, but they have retirement. They have they worked, all the time. And so they're very comfortable. They're traveling. They're doing the old people thing.
It's a good life.
And it's like, okay, that's great,
Right.
And so, and they have Christmas with all the kids and grandkids and great grandkids and all the stuff. And it's like, how would you? I can't understand how that's not a value anymore. People don't value like a legacy. And like, because I remember like being at Christmas and looking at my grandfather and looking at every single person in this huge room or at this house or wherever you're, all these people are here because of you, and because of God, of course.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, you procreated and had this is all here.
This is the life you built.
Right. And they grew up and got married, had kids, and that, and it's like, man, that sort of like, patriarch. No, it's the bad word, but like of a family. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just like that is people don't see that of any value of any value these days, and it's like holy crap, like that's
because
crazy.
I think it goes back to the material, right? Like when they think of something to show, they think of material.
But that's the atheist answer for eternal life, whatever, is you live on in the memory of your descendants and you want to leave a legacy because you aren't going to live forever. And so there's even more of that in the materialist atheist view of like, you live on in the memory and that's your eternity. And that's,
Yeah, but I think they say those things and don't believe them. I think atheists have as many platitudes as Christians do, where we just say stuff that we don't always believe.
I think they believe that.
I don't know if they do. I honestly don't, because I can't.
I don't think I don't think they mean it in a literal sense, but I think
right. But I can't rationalize a worldview that says your children are your future legacy and inheritance, but also you should be able to kill them on demand.
Yeah,
like the two things he made.
Well, okay, so a lot of like sort of atheist materialists today will say those things they say you should have the right to kill all your children before they're born.
Right.
You should. We'll never have an abortion, right? But I want that freedom for you. That's a big one with a lot of sort of, atheist, leftist, materialist, Marxist mentality.
It always confuses me when I see women with children at abortion protests.
Right.
Like, advocating for the right.
Well, I mean, it's wanting to fall on the right side of history, but not for me. And that's why like, a lot of these celebrities are getting married. Like you look at a lot of celebrities, they get married, have very traditional lives. They don't have a lot of abortions. They don't do any of these things that they promote, that they fight for or promoting, because it's like, well, you can do that. I won't. Like, I won't send my kids to public school.
Right.
But we all definitely should have public school. But no rich celebrity is putting their kid in these ghetto public schools, and it's like, but they're the best thing in America. Right? Okay, you first. And that like none of these political elites either want to put their kids in public school. They're all in private schools. They're all in the better schools, but they'll rant up and down about public schools are the best thing and they're so important for you, not for me.
Right.
We have money, so we're not going to do that. But for you definitely should have public school, and that's just a weird like thing. Somebody called it like luxury beliefs or luxury principles or something.
I can see that.
Someone was on with Barry Weiss talking about it, and he had this. He wrote for a book or something about the idea of luxury beliefs. It's like, well, yeah, you're not gonna ever face this. Like defund the cops.
Yeah.
Like LeBron James is fine with defunding the cops because he's got his own personal security team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That will not affect his life at all. Defund the cops. He's got a gated community. That's all. That's all these people who shout all these things and so that is a luxury belief that you can have. But someone in the ghetto, I want some cops around maybe sometimes. So that's it's definitely. So I think in that way they will say that and mean it, but also they'll say abortion. They'll say you just live for yourself or whatever, and then not really do those.
Do you think that's the thing that they don't actually believe?
I think that's the thing they don't actually believe. A lot of them, I think. And then the ones who do are like, yeah, that's right. I'm not bad.
I think the death of like family legacy has a part to do with feminism too.
Yeah. Like
that's the quotes from some of the first wave feminists, like the mentor of Susan B. Anthony was about not being able to give up her life to become a man's housekeeper. Yeah. Like that's the position she saw marriage as and children.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because there's so much nuance to that because there was abuse. Men weren't being men. I think to a great extent, they were getting drunk. They were just not. They were abusing the family, beating the wives and kids, and so you have an entire culture of that. I could see them just adopting a different worldview. You know what I mean? Because it's like this sucks, and I think for a lot of people it did suck. But again, personal circumstances don't change the reality and truth of the world. And so, but they constantly just like, well, I'm in this loveless marriage, so now I'm going to change my view on divorce.
But I mean, do you think where that kind of hits me is weird? Like, do you think that was any different in biblical times?
No.
When Paul was saying things to wives and husbands, like who are probably in the same situation of loveless marriages, and like he didn't give them a caveat for that.
The truth's the truth.
Right.
Yeah. But, you know, I could definitely see why. It doesn't make it right. Like you said, you have it's what do you say? It's real.
It's real,
but it's not valid. Right. That's true. Like your situation sucks, but that doesn't change the truth of divorce.
Right.
It doesn't change the truth of anything of these other things. So yeah, no, I don't think. I mean, but I could see why. You know, but what we have the thing we have to resist is changing the truth and reality based on our own personal circumstances.
Right. And I think there's a difference of remedies too. Like for that kind of thinking, the remedy was, well, we just need to get rid of marriage. When in reality, the remedy is the gospel, right? That's what changes people, which changes marriages, which changes families.
Which that is the ultimate goal of like kind of the Marxist mentality is to change what humans are.
Right.
Well, that's the Christian does. That's what Christianity does. That's what God does. That's what the gospel does. Regeneration, right? That's what everybody, and we have this sort of want for that, you know, the creation groans for it. So it's like we know this truth because we're creating the image of God, but it gets distorted, and so regeneration gets distorted into some Marxist utopia or something, when really it's the gospel. Which
is funny because the new world is also what we're looking forward to, right? Everything be made new.
I'm telling you, like the goal is the same pretty much, but just different.
The method is completely different.
Yeah.
So I want to look at this a little bit because this is true too, I think, and it's something that we don't think about, but maybe in the social media world more than ever, society and comparing ourselves to others seems to be what gives us anxiety. In social media, like in a world where you can see everybody's best life on your phone, that has to be horrifying.
But who doesn't know that that's fake?
I don't think it matters.
I whenever I see somebody, like someone's family pictures, I look right next to my family pictures and know what a stressful day that was. I'm yelling at the kids. You know what I mean? And I don't think I'm much different than a lot of other human beings. So I'm thinking this is as fake as my posts are.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so,
but we lived in the world before social media.
I don't think it's what I think it. I don't think it's. I've got to live up to what I see on social media. It's I can't let anybody see the real me.
Yes.
I think that's where the anxiety comes from. Is the mask, is the putting up, and social media provides for that.
Right.
You can put your profile, you can put your thing, and hope no one ever sees the real thing. And that's been a big thing for me my whole life. Of the fear of being found out is greater than it causes me not to want to hide things, because it's like if you're bald, you know what I mean? It's like the only thing worse than being bald is wearing a toupee.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Right.
So if I'm bald, I'm just gonna lean into it and be like, because the only thing worse is wearing a toupee.
Right.
Is being insecure about it and being like, you've got to like just own it.
And it's not like everybody doesn't know.
Right.
That's the thing. You're not fooling anyone.
And that's what it is. I don't think I can fool anyone. I think, and this is how I was when I was a kid. I always thought I can't get away with anything. I'll get caught. I never thought they won't find out. They'll never know. I've never snuck out because I thought my mom's gonna just come to my room and be like,
see, you're not
gone.
There.
Yeah, like because that's an extremely easy possibility, and it's like so like. I had a friend like come to my window, like, "Hey man, I'm going to party." And I'm like, "You out of your mind? I'm not leaving my room."
Don't even say party.
Right? Get out of here. Get out of my backyard. It's great. I never thought I'd get away with anything. So then it's like, and maybe I guess more people are more confident or something.
Just didn't care.
or something. But I guess that happens sometimes. I think I would think I'd probably get caught, but it's worth it.
Right.
But I think I'll get caught. Right. I never thought I'd get away with anything. And so if I wore a toupee, I wouldn't get away. People will know. But I think people think they won't know. And so they're in this constant anxiety of trying to put on a different face and hide the real them.
And that's what's weird too when you think about celebrities and like reality TV. Like we want everyone to see everything about us all the time, but we want it to be the fake stuff that we put out there.
What do you think about this hot mess mentality of like, things are crazy and we're wild and it's and then so like they'll post the pictures of them with, I think, like in the mess and it's almost like indulge in this it's chaotic life.
I think it's just as fake as the other
right.
one. It's
I think so too.
Equally fake. It's just another persona to be relatable.
Right.
It's like the girl in every movie who's like the main love interest or whatever. How she's like so quirky and she sings songs and wears rain boots. Like that would be so annoying.
Yeah.
In real life.
Yeah.
It's just another facade.
But I think that's the annoying person in the movie too, though.
Yeah. No, they are. But
well, I mean, so like the perfect. Remember like Step Brothers, the perfect brother and stuff. Like, oh, that sucks. But that's the life everybody's trying to put online.
Right.
Singing in the car together, But it's understood that's fake. That's not real. That person is they're the bad guys. And so it's like, but it's just weird. The social media thing is like that's what we're trying to project out there, and everyone knows it's fake. And so I don't think it is that like, well, I got to keep up with the Joneses because I know they're just as screwed up as I am, but I'm trying to hide as much mess as I can on social media, and then we start believing our own lies or something. Start believing our own hype or whatever, because then it's like, well, I can pull one over on everybody, and nobody will know what the real mess I'm living in.
Let's say you end up being Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
you turn into a character if you play one for so long.
And wear 50 arm bracelets.
Yeah, you always have braids even though you're 50.
Yeah.
There's a couple of people that Maggie watches on YouTube that there's one girl in particular I can't stand her because she's that to a T. Like, oh, we're the hot mess family. Well, I can't.
Just like wild.
Yes, all of that. Always loud. I tell her all the time. Like, if I was her husband, I would tell her to shut up. For 5 minutes.
Yeah. I'm crazy.
Oh, I hate it.
Let's get pizza on the first.
Right.
It's like those stupid. Like it's like okay.
Nobody likes that. Nobody wants that.
It's okay for a second. It's like all right, you're being honest, but then it's just like. All right, it's not cute anymore. All right, brush your hair a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, just kind of.
Well, because at some point it is like, oh, you're like this all the time.
Yeah.
Like you never turn it off. Dude. Right? It's the same. It's the other way.
It is, but behind that, like trying to keep up this appearances is the anxiety I think that everybody's facing. It's because we're trying to compensate for deficiencies that we see and stuff, and try to atone for our own.
Yeah, it's the fig leaves.
Yes,
it's the fig leaves. And that really irritates me at church. At church is where it bugs me most, where everybody's got the facade of doing okay.
Yeah,
that because you would think church is like the one place where you're supposed to be able to be like real, because we all get it. We all know we're sinners and broken and corrupted and whatever. Right. But nobody wants to be the one to be like, well, yeah, me especially. Here's mine.
Yeah, but then that can get crazy too. Because then it's just like someone overshares at like a public prayer thing, and it's just like, oh my god, like this isn't like your counseling time. You know what I mean? Oof. Like save this for the therapist a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like there's that way too. Yeah. There's the super fake, everything's fine, and then there's the.
But that I'm
horrible. No one's ever had it as bad as me.
That's super fake too, though.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like
it's all attention seeking.
So how do we balance this of like, we're trying to express ourselves of like, I don't want to just, when a stranger asks me, how's it going?
You don't want to be at the gas station like,
yeah.
Oh, my kids are psychotic.
My
wife never does anything. Yeah.
Because then it's like you shouldn't do that.
Right.
But even if it's true.
Right. Well, one of the things.
Not to that person.
Or to anyone, really.
Because if a close confidant at church says, how's it going? It might, it's like, hey, actually, can we talk? Not great, yeah. Well, what you should say if you really want to get some stuff off is like, actually, not great. Can we talk sometime?
Right.
That's what you say.
Right.
I'm not going to unload it here in the lobby. You know what I mean?
Right before lunch. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Gotta get a table.
Can we set up some time to talk? Thanks for asking. Not great, but can we set, I think that's the composed, dignified sort of way.
Well, it's not even just that. It's the most honest, because you're acknowledging that we're setting aside a time where I'm not going to have my facade up.
Right. And that's real. That's honest. Because we all have, there's general civility of just being in the world and not just airing all my dirty laundry to every stranger that comes by.
Right.
Because that's terrible.
Right.
But it doesn't mean to hide everything either. It's a time and place for everything. Yeah, it is that like, well, hey, like, can we eat coffee sometime? And then you do set that up, you follow through, and then
Well,
you have that time.
How much of that do you think is lost in people not having close relationships
A
anymore?
lot, because they don't.
Because there's no one to say, hey, can we?
Yeah, because the only way to put it is a Facebook post. Well, I'm going to put it all out there, because that's my community and that's normal talk, but that's not. And so no one ever gets together with a wise, confidant of somebody and gets coffee and just talks about things and shares and prays for each other and has real encouragement and points each other to the word. It's just all public out there. I think that's why people don't journal anymore.
Because no one can see it?
Because no one can see it. It's like, why would I tell my whole crappy day if no one can pity me for it? And so
that's big.
You're writing a journal. And so I think we do it just on social media now.
Right.
And so then it's like, well, now everybody has my journal. And so they're going to just, because I'm a reality show. I want to be the dramatic reality show. And Facebook and Instagram allows me to do that. So I can just air everything. And then maybe we'll go viral.
I've thought about that with like art projects and stuff where I think about events in my life and I'm like, this would be good writing, but I don't think I want to talk about this in public.
I mean, there's something to just kind of keeping stuff like not bottled up, but not
to yourself,
not aired out, and maybe tell people, in appropriate settings and stuff, and that's it's the people who have the clinical anxiety or whatever that I don't see doing that. I think there's a way that we can deal with real serious issues because we have them.
Right.
It's not to negate real things, but I think there's an appropriate way to handle them. And I think that used to be more commonplace a long time ago. And now with an age of social media, it's just share everything with everyone. And I'll get some pity and some likes and some,
And some of it might be that's the only pity I'm getting ever.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anybody to commiserate with or sympathize with you.
And it sucks because all the zeros and ones and the likes and everything, our brains weren't designed to see that as community and friendship and confidence with people and sharing and stuff.
But there's so many people that live for those.
Yeah.
There's people who design their entire personality around those zeros and ones. And like their whole life revolves around getting more thumbs up and thumbs down. So
should we just get off the grid?
No, because it's still useful. It's still a useful tool.
I don't.
I can't. I can't see abandoning the tool because you can use it poorly.
Yeah, I would maybe reshape it, or maybe or
just put it in its place, right? Like gold is an idol, but it's also useful.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think we don't know how to use it in moderation enough.
No, yeah, that's correct. But I mean, who are the leaders on how to use it?
It's like telling an alcoholic, just use it right.
Right, but okay, but
we can't.
Right, but what can make an alcoholic use alcohol correctly?
I don't know of anything.
Oh, okay. So we have different perspectives.
Well, maybe, but so if someone is alcoholic, and can they ever have a drink at a party?
Sure, I think so.
I think you're very alone in that thought.
I might be, but you know what? Here's again, I'm going to make a biblical argument for it, right?
For an alcoholic taking a drink,
because the idea of alcoholism is a modern mental health category.
Oh.
In the Bible, it's a sin called drunkenness.
There's no genetic predispositions?
No, get out of here.
Get out of here. I think that's a real thing.
No, it's garbage. What other sins can I pawn off from my genetics?
I mean, not pawning it off. But
it's kind of pawning it off.
Just dealing with it.
It's not my fault. I'm an alcoholic.
I mean, men naturally lust more.
Right.
And that's biological.
Right, but that's not genetic like when my dad was
biological.
Right, but I don't even think...
There are plenty of sins that come naturally that we need to rein in.
Right, but naturally to...
Genetics
humans.
Is naturally.
Right, but when you say they come naturally, I think it's naturally to all humans. Not like I have a special sin that's just specific to me.
With men, I think there's more, and I think with women.
Okay, let's say that.
There's different...
Women tend to gossip more, men tend to lust more, right? Okay.
So, biologically.
But what other ones can you say are unique to one specific man that he can say like, well, this is my genetics, and besides alcoholism, what else do we give him a pass for?
I don't think it's individual. I don't think it has to be individually, but the principle still stands of natural being sinful.
Yes.
Less genetics of alcohol.
Yeah, but there's a
alcoholism.
difference between proclivities from like the design being corrupted to I have a genetic predisposition to be an alcoholic.
What about a social something being nurtured into you that's sinful or whatever?
You need a new nature.
Well, okay, so like, no, I'm talking about like, you know, I idolize fatherhood because I grew up without a dad or something. That's not natural, but it's specific to you that you need to be careful of.
Right, but it's not unconquerable.
Idols can be shaped, I think, by the way we were nurtured.
But I think the difference is when we talk about alcoholism, we treat it as if it's not conquerable.
I think it's conquerable.
Right, but not. Let me put it this way: we would say with other sins like homosexuality, you don't identify with your sin, right? You don't identify yourself. Like if we were dealing with somebody or we were dealing with that, any kind of thing, you don't identify as that thing. Your identity is in Christ, not in your sin. So for you to say like, well, I'm a homosexual, is to say like this sin is my identity.
People do that.
Right. That's what I'm saying, but that's wrong, right?
Right.
Right. So I would say the same thing about alcoholism. Say, well, I'm an alcoholic.
Right.
You're identifying as your sin.
I agree with that, but I don't know if that means you can have a drink or you should.
I think you can get to a point in sanctification where you can. Honestly.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question of like, is the sanctifying part that you have chosen not to take a drink at all?
That's possible too. I would not, fault somebody for saying my conviction is that I shouldn't drink because of my past.
Right.
But I think the attitude that the general like world, AA approach to you're always going to be an alcoholic, you'll never be able to drink, it's always going to be trying to get you back is wrong. Also,
I agree with that. It's not your identity. It's not who you are. Yeah, I would disagree with that. But I don't know if it's like, well, you can have a drink. Like, I don't know.
Sometimes I don't know. I mean,
if I knew someone was struggling, who has a history of struggle with alcoholism, I don't know if I'd ask to meet up with them at a bar. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or a pub or like a craft beer place or something, and just be like, ooh, yeah, I know he kind of has that in his past, so like I'll kind of be careful. I'm not gonna be like,
right.
Hey, everyone, you're not an alcoholic. Go ahead. Your identity's in Christ. Take a drink.
I don't know, man. It's hard because again, I look back at the passages where it's like, and such were some of you.
Yeah.
But implying you're not anymore.
But it doesn't matter. Like you can be like be wasted every single day and that not be your identity.
Right.
Well, so it doesn't. So let's talk about two different things. Let's talk about you're gonna live have this sin still or be struggling with it, but it's not your identity. But it doesn't mean it's gone away.
When we get into the genetic genetic predispositions, that's where it gets weird for me. Like we're attributing sins to genetics. It's strange that we do that.
We're attributing sin to sin natures, fallen nature.
Right, but that's common to everybody.
Yeah, but it's going to look different too in everybody.
Right, but not. It's the genetic part that's like, I'm an alcoholic because it's in my genes.
No, I don't think that's it. I don't think someone's an alcoholic be like genetically determined. Like
that's what it means to have a genetic predisposition.
Not just tendencies. Not like you will be. You know what I mean? Like if your father and grandfather are an alcoholic, doesn't mean you will be one.
Right.
And you're off the hook.
I think it has more to do with your personality.
I think if you have like a long line of alcoholism in your life, you're like, ooh, I don't know. I need to kind of be careful about this.
I don't know, man. I think personality is bigger than...
That's what my mom said. She might have even said already. Because, we have alcoholism in our past, and that's why my mom was kind of like, was really hawkish on like, I'm not drinking at all, ever. And it wasn't like, oh, if you have one sip, you're going to become an alcoholic. It was, I have this history in my family, and I think it's proven into your genetics, and be like, I may, if I open this door, still on me.
Right.
Go down this path of alcoholism.
I feel like I would attribute that more to personality than...
I mean, it's your sin. You're still sinning. I'm not saying...
Right. But
I'm just saying, like, I don't know if they should have a drink. Or, like, if they were an alcoholic in their own lives in the past. They're an alcoholic for 20 years, and it's been 5-6 years since they've had a drink.
Maybe it's more than 5-6.
It's like, I don't think that person is okay to have a drink.
I don't know. It's hard for me to say, like, this is the one thing you can never overcome.
And you overcome it. I'm not saying you don't overcome it. I'm saying, what does overcoming it look like? Maybe not having a drink ever again.
That's an interesting perspective.
That's what I think a lot of homosexuals have to face
that's
all
true.
the time and change and bringing their identity into Christ.
That's true, because it's not gay to straight.
Right. That was what Rosario Butterfield said, and she was saying, like in her prayer in coming to Christ is, I'm giving this to you, and if that means I never have sex again, I mean, I don't think it can. It has to. I don't think it often does, but it might, of just like, I'm going to live a life of celibacy for Christ, and that's because my natural inclinations are sinful.
That's interesting.
And so it's like, okay, if you're going to give your entire identity and life to Christ, what does that mean? Putting everything under submission to Him, and that, I don't know. I mean, I think that might mean the complete elimination of some things.
I don't know. I could agree to an extent, but I think sexual sin is a different category.
Well, yeah,
in some way, like it's.
I mean, yeah, it's an identity question and something to think about. But I don't know. I did want to read this though, because I think we can end with this. Philippians 4. This is where I often also go to and talk about anxiety. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And so finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. And then in verse 19, and my God will supply every need of yours according to His riches in glory in Christ Jesus. To our God and Father be glory forever and ever. Amen. I think that's, people read the first part of that often. And my God will supply every need of yours. Oh, awesome. Wait, what? According to His riches in glory in Christ Jesus. Like, oh, okay. That might look very different than what the world says we need, or supplying our every need, or even what my church might say supplies my every need. According to His riches in glory in Christ Jesus. That could look very different than what we think of it. And so ultimately, that's what it's for. Like, if the clothing and home and food and everything are the point, then that's not going to be provided for you. Maybe it's like God will smash your idols. And so if you're idolizing these things He's providing and glorifying the gift over the giver, that's going to be a problem. But if you're not, truly not, I mean, I think that you seek the kingdom of God and these things will follow. So I don't know. That's kind of where I land on anxiety and peace. And look what it says: which surpassing all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ. So bring your petitions, but everything, prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Let your requests be made known to God. God, I want this job. Right? That's my request. Right? Is the answer okay? He'll get it for you. No, the answer is, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus through not getting the job. Right. And that's my prayer too. God, I want this job, but I don't want to put my hope and faith in it. Please guard my heart and mind in you against any bitterness or resentment that might come from not getting this job, or from not what I see as what I need to being provided for. Guard my heart and my mind against that and guard it in you, And I think that's where we need to be, a place of constant prayer of guard our hearts and minds.
Well, the Thanksgiving is huge too. Like prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Yeah. I think that's something that's lost too. A lot of times in prayer, when we're asking for something else, we're not thankful for what we already have. Right. And that's huge. Right.
Yeah. That's been an effort to be in my prayers too, of like, God, you've provided so much for us. Thank you. And let me be grateful for that, just in general. And then I'm making a request for this job as well. Let's talk about contentment and this book, The Rare Jewel of Christian Contentment by Jeremiah Burroughs. So freaking good. I read this like 2019, I think, and it might have been the book of the year for me for that. There's this one part where it's worth looking for, where he's talking about our matching our desires with what we have. And so we desire what we don't have. And if we could match our desires with what we have, let me see. There's a part where he talks about why you might not get that thing that you want. And it was very good. Okay, here it is. Lamentation 3:24. The Lord is my portion, saith my soul. Why should you not be satisfied and contented like God? God is contented. He is in eternal contentment in himself. Now, if you have that God as your portion, why should you not be contented with him alone? Since God is contented with himself alone, if you have him, you may be contented with him alone. And it may be that is the reason why your outward comforts are taken from you, that God may be all in all to you. So again, it says that smashing of idols of like, the reason why your outward comforts are taken from you, that God may be all in all to you. So like that is where you're satisfied. You should be satisfied. And if you're not, well, I'm going to take something away so you are. So,
man,
yeah. But anxiety, contentment, peace, guarding our hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. I think that's the answer.
Good thought. So before we head out, thoughts on another book you just finished?
Oh, you want to do that now, or do you want to do it next time?
All right.
Just finished Hitchens' God is Not Great. I read this like in high school, but I didn't stick, so I read it again. It's just basically the angry atheist middle school kid,
But more eloquent.
He likes the sound of his own voice, man. It's very wordy and very just. He says a lot without saying anything, and it's kind of annoying. But it's so many straw men. Like it was hard to read because it's just the typical like. Well, there was a Christian who did a bad thing,
right,
in history. So there you go. It doesn't work, and it's like, okay, what do you think you proved? He doesn't attack the Bible. He attacks religion and religious people. It's like, well, yeah, I agree with like almost everything you're saying. Like, a lot of these priests who molest kids are bad, but that's not Christianity.
Right.
And he's saying that's religion. That's, religious terrorists, 9/11. He just lumps everything in. There's no category at all of anything. It's just you're religious in the name of a God. There you go. See what it does? Religion's bad and God is bad. And then he makes, it's the typical by what standard,
right?
Like even the title, God is not great. By what standard? What are you talking about? Great, where evolved protoplasm, where you get the word great from. And this is one part. It says ethics and morality are quite independent of faith and cannot be derived from it. Like he just says that,
just as a matter of fact.
Yeah, he's like, since religion has proved itself uniquely delinquent on the one subject where moral and ethical authority might be counted as universal and absolute, I think we're entitled to at least 3 provisional conclusions. The first is that religion and the churches are manufactured and that this salient fact is too obvious to ignore. The second is that ethics and morality are quite independent of faith and cannot be derived from it. But he gives no definition of what is moral.
Right.
What does it mean? And I underlined throughout the whole thing, immoral, bad, wrong, evil, cruel, awful, like all these adjectives. Like, where are you getting this? What's evil? What's good? It's an assumed thing,
right?
Well,
right,
right.
What's
we
all know.
No, we don't know, and that's what Doug Wilson in the debate with him asked him that by what standard. He's like, send someone to hell is horrible. He's like, by what standard? He's like, that's a good question. And he says, and then he opens it up to audience.
Yes, right.
He's like, show of hands.
Yeah.
Who thinks that that's a moral thing to do? Whatever. And it's like, and if I was Doug Wilson, I'm like, whoa, hang on. You're asking people in this room, in this place, in this country, in 2010, whatever it was. Let's go back 100 years.
Right.
My answer might be different. That's not a reliable source. A crowd of people raising their hand of what's moral, and that's his whole thing. Is just we all know what's good and moral and right. We don't. We constantly arguing about that. But he sees it as a given of like everyone knows it, common sense. This is what's right. This is what's it's like. You're insane. Like you go to another country right now, you'll get a different answer. So he says, yet again, also too much is being proved. The action of a man who volunteers to die for his fellow creatures is universally regarded as noble. The extra claim not to have really died makes the whole sacrifice tricky and meretricious. Thus, those who say Christ died for my sins when he did not really die at all are making a statement that is false in its own terms. So he's talking about because he was resurrected,
Right.
we didn't really make sacrifice because he came back. And then he's talking about like the other people like Lazarus and stuff who were also resurrected. It seems like a common thing. It's not very special. And he doesn't consider the fact that those people died again. That's the whole point, is that Christ is alive today. Right? Those were resuscitations, ultimately.
Right.
Christ came alive and did not die again. He is still alive. That he just like ignores that. It's like that's the whole Christian thing, is the he stayed alive part.
Right.
We know these other people were resurrected, but they died again. You know, so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of just like you've not heard the gospel. You've not heard like what this is. And I think that's something we really need to consider, is that most people have not heard and rejected true biblical gospel. They've heard some, you know, moral lifestyle. You know, they've not heard the true biblical gospel. Another section says, "Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just." He was quoting someone else saying that. And says, "This was a statement as incoherent as it is memorable. Given the marvel of a God who was also just, there would be in the long term nothing much to tremble about." It's like, well, if God, so that is he's completely unaware of his own sin.
Right.
This is a man who's never been told, I think, sufficiently that he's a sinner and that he's understand that.
Because why would he be worried if God is
just?
I'm
yeah,
good.
Yes, exactly. If God is just, there would be in the long term nothing much to tremble about, because we all know
all righteous. Yes.
Yeah. But it's a complete lack of understanding. And so that's why he's never been shown the true gospel, because the true gospel comes with the bad news first. And he's never been told the bad news.
It's telling to hear that line knowing he's dead now. Like,
yeah, I know. And I like Hitchens, like just personally.
Right. He's funny. He's witty.
Funny. He's witty. He's like Frasier almost.
Yeah.
He's like Frasier. He's very erudite, you know, very, and he like gives blood. He gave blood as often as he could. He's very moral person. Very, you know, I think a lot of integrity. Very honest. In a lot of times, he just assumes too much, and he just does not have any real understanding. This is like the high school angry atheist kid,
and that is where he fell apart with Doug Wilson. Is the assumptions.
It's just so many assumptions of what we all know. Sure, we all know it's moral, you know, and it's just like I think it's. It says, I was a guarded admirer of the late Pope John Paul II, who by any human standards was a brave and serious person capable of displaying both moral and physical courage. By any human standards. What are those? You talk so by any the humans, the standards of evolved apes. And he even calls people mammals. And like gets very like just matter of fact, he's talking about Kim Jong-il, you know, this stupid, this ignorant mammal and his equally ignorant mammal son. It's like, okay, where are you getting these moral things? Yeah, ludicrous mammal Kim Il-sung and his pathetic mammal son, Kim Jong-il. We're animals. Who cares?
Right.
Where are you getting these standards of good and right and immoral and ludicrous and pathetic or whatever in a bunch of evolved mammals? Like that gap is like he's just completely blind to it.
Well, I think all atheists have to, because like they lose any footing when everything that they're talking about is a facade, right? Because in a materialistic worldview, morality, love, kindness, respect, those are all just facades, veneer
It's
over over our evolutionary baldness.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's that thing of like they speak out of one side and then do something else. It's like we're all stardust, but murder's bad. Like, what are you talking about? We're all stardust. I just said a second ago.
We don't weep over supernovas.
John Piper said, you know, we teach children, we teach kids in school that they're animals, and we get outraged and shocked when they start killing each other like animals in the same schools that we taught them that they're stardust and evolved animals. What do you think they're going to start thinking about each other if they're really depressed and have a lot of anxiety and are pissed off? They're just going to be like, well, who cares? It's just this nihilistic thing. I mean, it's a natural thing, and it's like, oh, it doesn't have to lead to that, but
where else can?
But it logically does.
Right.
You're right. I don't think it does, but that's because you're denying. You don't believe what you're actually saying. That's the only reason you're not Jeffrey Dahmer. because you don't actually believe what you're saying.
Mm.
And even he didn't, believe that was right either. He quotes from the Brothers Karamazov, which is on my list for this year to read.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I know. It's like 800 pages. But there's this part where this guy, I guess, Ivan to Alyosha, says, tell me straight out. I call on you. Answer me. Imagine that you yourself are building the edifice of human destiny with the object of making people happy in the finale, of giving them peace and rest at last. But for that, you must inevitably and unavoidably torture just one tiny creature, that same child who was beating her chest with her little fist, and raise your edifice on the foundation of her unrequited tears. Would you agree to be the architect of such conditions? Tell me the truth. That's basically what his accusation, like, oh, there's all this, why does there got to be so much sacrifice for that if the point is happiness? But he reveals he doesn't know what he's talking about. To use this quote, because it says, building the edifice of human destiny with the object of making people happy in the finale. That's not Christianity.
Right, that's not the point.
Right, but I think he thinks it is, and so many other people do. Christianity's point is to make you happy, to be comfortable, to be at peace, and to float around in clouds.
Right.
In what I said before, the amusement park in the sky. No, you don't know what Christianity is. He's not attacking the Bible. He's attacking all these other false ideas of Christianity. And so it's so frustrating, all these straw men that he's attacking. He doesn't go after the Bible hardly at all. Those are his and those are his weakest arguments. His best arguments are against sinful people. I'm right there with you. I agree with everything he says on the immorality of some Christians. I agree. But that's not what we're talking about here. And that's not the point of Christianity. So he never actually is attacking true biblical Christianity. He says, humanism has many crimes for which to apologize, but it can apologize for them and also correct them in its own terms and without having to shake or challenge the basis of any unalterable system of belief. Totalitarian systems, whatever outward form they may take, are fundamentalist and, as we would now say, faith-based. I would agree with that. But he's saying, because you talk about like Mao and Stalin and all these sort of atheist, all the bloodshed from atheist regimes and stuff and totalitarianism. And he's saying like, well, it's pretty much a religion. It's like, yeah, but you believe a religion. What you believe is faith-based also. And he won't say he is because he's not a totalitarian and he's not a Christian because they're both pretty much religious faith-based systems.
But his is not.
His is not, and that's how it always goes, right?
Right.
Well, everybody, and he calls it the default. He calls it here, taking the default mode of atheism. But that's pretty much it. I mean, it's kind of hard to read because I don't actually feel like he's actually attacking Christianity. You know what I mean? So it's just a very like ignorant view of what true biblical Christianity is, and then attacking it. And you're right again, but you've given no basis for what is moral or great or wrong or evil or anything. It's just assumed. That's
so much of atheism, though. I feel like there's probably a lot of Christians who feel like they can't defend their faith, and it's because they think atheists have a valid argument.
Yeah,
and they don't realize they don't.
Too much is conceded at the very beginning.
Yes,
you're trying to like battle with swords when you got to point out he's not holding a sword,
right?
But no one points that out. They just give it to him. They just hand him one.
Yeah. You forgot one.
Yeah, and then you start fighting. It's like, hang on, you just stole from your sword rack. Don't let him do that. It's a lot easier. By what standard? You have no ground to stand on. We're all stardust, whatever. But
well, on that, I mean, read it if you want to, I guess.
I mean, that is a lot of what is out there.
Yeah,
so go ahead. It is.
And then also watch Collision.
Yes.
Great.
Doug Wilson's debate with Christopher Hitchens. Really, really great.
Until next time, which we're actually going to be moving around. So Wednesday afternoons we're looking at?
Yeah, I guess so.
Wednesdays at 5.
Shoot for.
So that's what we'll be shooting for going forward. So hopefully we'll have everything up by Fridays, which today is Friday. So I'll try to have it up tomorrow. Anyways. A little chaos today, but we got it out. Thanks, everybody, for being here. This is the time. This is the place. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.